What up, y'all? Wanted to do a quick video. I'm gonna do a market recap. We've been having rallies going on, and the Fed just had its. The Fed just spoke today. Jerome Powell came out and said that they'll be there for the markets, and almost like they admitted that if they weren't there, the markets would collapse. And the markets rallied greatly today. Let's see, what do I see happening? Okay, so last year I was calling everything to the T. The Fed was doing everything I said they would do. They would keep raising rates until something broke. I still feel like they're going to raise rates, but I think that they're going to start doing quantitative easing. Quantitative easing is printing money. So expect the dollar to have its up days and its down days. When they when they raise rates, the dollar should have its strength because people are going to need their dollars to pay off their dollar-denominated debt. Sorry if I'm wiggling too much. I'm at work and I drank a lot of, it's night shift, so I drank a lot of energy drinks, so I'm a little bit nervous. I'm a little bit shaky. But all right, so anyway, I believe that they're going to just keep raising interest rates because right now at this point, I think the markets are ready to collapse worldwide. There's just too much debt out there, and there's no way to service people's debt because the income is not there. So we're at that saturation point that I talked about in the last video. So they're going to raise interest rates so that the dollar has value, and then they're going to use quantitative easing to create more dollars to just go into the marketplace and to inflate certain assets that benefit their political story or their cronies, okay? So it's almost like 2008. 2008, when you had the crash, they started pumping up assets that the rich billionaires were in. And they had this stupid Davos meeting again, which Trump didn't show up to, Macron didn't show up to. Most of the heavy hitters didn't go to anymore. A lot of the billionaires were concerned about what's going to be happening with economies and markets because they want to see if they can influence politicians into doing the same kind of bailout so that all these rich people make more money. All right, so hopefully you're prepared. You've purchased assets that protect you. And like I've told you many times, I've already started shorting regional banks. I've started shorting stock markets. I've shorted real estate. I hold gold. I've held gold and silver for a long time, but I've increased some of my gold stock holdings and silver stock holdings. I at the end of last year purchased oil, even though oil was starting to go down. And I told people that, it seems counterintuitive, but because, oil is a demand-driven commodity. So if people can't afford it anymore, you're going to see a lot of it sell off. But I said, you know what? Oil is a political asset. Governments still like it. And as long as we're still using oil to power our vehicles and generators and things like that, I still saw oil having potential to go up. And that was a phenomenal trade because I sold out of oil before it came down, and then I bought into it again as it was coming down even further, and oil just popped right back up again. So I'm thinking, though, before this next crash, sometime soon, I'm going to start unwinding those oil trades, though, because oil is very sensitive to the economy, too. And if that happens where we get cut off, I think oil could drop precipitously, like rain, like a rock. But Venezuela, since it's a major oil producer, is a key part of the oil markets as well. So it's dollar dependent. Oil is also yuan dependent. It's also politically dependent on the Middle East and Venezuela and all these things. So oil could actually go anywhere at this point. But like I said, if people are not buying it, down is the major trend for everything except for money and protecting assets. So shorting things, you might get a real nice ride coming through. Like I said, right now, I'm not too sure what's going to happen. I'll tell you honestly, I was nailing it all last year, but I do not have a key inside position on what's going to happen in the markets. So at this point, I highly emphasize that I am not a financial advisor, an investment advisor. I do not give any financial or investment advice. I'm merely giving you entertainment and trying to prod you into doing some of your own education so that you can invest your own money. If you decide to follow my investment decisions, you are responsible for any wins or losses that you incur from your decisions. I am not responsible for them. And with that, the way I see things, I still subscribe to Brent Johnson's dollar milkshake theory. The dollar is the best looking asset in a hamper of dirty clothes. Okay, so all other currencies are crap and the dollar is crap, but the dollar is the best crap of the crap. Okay, because it is the world's reserve currency. So whenever a country starts to collapse, what do they need to transact? Dollars. Why don't they go to gold? I'm sure some people do go to gold, but gold is expensive for other countries, and it's hard to get and it's hard to transact with it. The dollar is a semi-digital currency right now, and it is going to help to transition into cryptocurrencies, which I believe will be the result of the final collapse of all current fiat currencies, including the dollar, at the end point. What that end point will be, I don't know. But at this point, I'll see the dollar rallying. And as they raise interest rates, dollar will continue rallying. And I believe the Fed will continue to raise interest rates because they don't have the room to cut yet. But they can still quantitatively ease. So they can still create dollars and then just raise interest rates to try to uplift the value of those dollars that they create, even though they're killing the value of the dollar as they quantitatively ease. So and I do believe the Fed is going to ease. They have to because China's doing it. China's easing because China's markets are all screwed up because Trump created the trade tariffs and trade sanctions with all of the rogue evil states that have been taking absolute advantage of America, and we're losing anyway. So he's basically saying, if we're going to lose, you're going to lose hard as well. So he's really screwed China, and China is starting to show signs of it. So they just recently pumped a whole bunch of money into the marketplace, and I think the Fed also coordinated with that to help the markets rally, to take advantage of that. And so like I said, I see more of that coming. So as they raise interest rates, they're going to quantitatively ease to prevent the Chinese yuan from dropping so much in value due to the flood of liquidity that's going to come into the marketplace as China injects all that value into different assets that they deem are important. So you're going to see some assets rise, but like I said, there's going to be a crash. So overall, the crash is coming, and you need to start picking some of your favorite assets to see if they survive the crash. And after the crash, there may be some good things to buy. People may not like the stock market again for a long time after this crash, because this is going to make such a bad taste in people's mouths from such a drop that I don't think they're going to touch the stock markets for a while. Now, this is getting into the spiritual realm, all right? Normally, I don't talk spiritual stuff because I know that turns a lot of people off, but I want you guys to think about what's going on right now politically with the Democrats. The Democrats on January 22nd, which is the anniversary of Roe versus Wade, in New York, they signed legislation that allows a woman to have an abortion up to the point where she's about to deliver a baby. So it's in the third trimester of the baby's existence. That is no longer a clump of cells. That is actually a human being. And I want you to realize the Democrats are actually satanic. They have a number of communists that have now infiltrated their party. It's happened already for a long time now. And I've tried to warn people, but they don't realize that it gets into the spiritual realm. And the mere fact that they did this legislation on an anniversary date coincides with all the satanic stuff that goes on. All right, I'm going to give you a little history. There was in Syria, there was a gateway to a temple that became ruins, right? But the only thing that remained was this gateway. It was an arch, and it was in a city of Palmyra. Palmyra is kind of in the middle of Syria, in the middle of the desert. It's like a wasteland desert. Uh, it was a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and in the Bible, in the book of Chronicles, I don't remember the exact book, but I remember Solomon created that city. He built that city in the middle of Syria. And at that time, I believe it was called Tamor, something like that, okay? So because there are a lot of date palms in the area, the word Tamor refers to the palm, and Palmyra, palm, the word palm is in that as well. So Palmyra is the modern name for that city. Tamar was the ancient name for it, okay? And over the centuries, it began as a pagan site where they built that temple, and it was to worship the god Baal or Baal. The god Baal is the god of waste. He's the Lord of waste, or the master of waste, okay? Of basically refuse, of filth. Basically everything that you can do to free yourself from the true God, he wants you to do. And so a lot of the pagans worshipped him because they didn't like the Judeo-Christian God. The Judeo-Christian God taught us the Ten Commandments. He taught us to restrict our behaviors so that we can live long in the land and prosper, because we avoid diseases, we avoid bankruptcy, we avoid all these bad things that people who don't have self-discipline experience. The god of Baal, or the idol or devil Baal that they worshipped as a god, basically frees you from all that. You can do what you want. Okay, so this city was built on a mound, and this mound, they call them tells, but the mound is basically a bunch of trash. We have those today. They have like waste refuse sites where they're big mountains where they come and they dump our trash. I don't know if a lot of you have seen that, but my living in California near the main cities, I've seen a lot of those sites. And they try to beautify them so that in wealthy cities, people don't complain about it. But they're these giant hills where you have big trucks carrying the trash, and they dump them in there in the middle of the thing, and it acts like a bowl. Well, through thousands of years of people living in a certain site, they develop trash, and it builds these mounds. And so they built this temple to Baal on top of it, okay? So it's a trash mound. Perfect location for the god of filth. He's a filthy god, allows you to do all kinds of dirty things. And guess what? One of his main things is that they would sacrifice children to him. There is a satanic pagan feast called Beltane, which is in May. And interestingly enough, May Day, or May 1st, is celebrated by communists. So communist socialists are actually satanic people. They do a lot of May stuff where they worship these demons. And these demons often have pedophile tendencies or infanticide tendencies, where they kill children or they abuse children and they use them for sexual purposes, basically stealing their innocence. So, all right. So Palmyra is the city in the middle of Syria. And what happens? I'm bringing this up to relate it to, just stick with me. I'm going to relate it to the abortion thing. So what happens? There's a war with ISIS, right? In Syria. There's a battle of Palmyra. And ISIS is very much like any other radical Muslim religion. And in the past, I've posted things on Facebook and on Instagram and things about how I hate the fact that the radical Muslims go through and they destroy a lot of human heritage sites, because I'm like Indiana Jones. I think that even though people have worshipped other things in the past, that's still human history. It's all our history. It's our heritage. So we should preserve those things, keep them in museums, even though some of those things may be satanic or whatever. You want to preserve them for our history purposes. And history is great because when you learn history, you don't repeat it. All right, well, they had this Temple Baal ruins with this archway. The devil tends to mock our God. As I'm a Catholic, so I worship the Christian God. He is one God in three, right? He is three in one, I should say. Three persons in one. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. The Temple of Baal, or the Palmyra archway, had three doorways. It had a big middle one, kind of like my middle finger, and then it had two others on the sides, two archways on the sides. And Baal was the main god that they would worship, and they would worship a sun god and a moon god in tandem. So the devil tends to do similar things to what our God does in mockery of our God. In scriptures, it talks about how Lucifer, his name is Luz. Luz in Espanol, in Spanish, is light, right? Lucifer, and that's Greek, Lucifer, the light bearer. The devil comes robed in light, okay? So he clothes himself as if he's a noble figure, as if he's something loving or good and kind, and he ends up turning to be the opposite. He enslaves you and abuses you and things like that. All right, side note, just side note stuff so that you can kind of get a figure of what the devil is like and who Baal is. Baal is one form of the devil from the Christian Jewish even perspective, because Jesus spoke about him, and Jesus was a Jew. We follow Jesus Christ, and that makes us Christians. So in effect, we are also Jews, but we are fulfilled in our religion that we believe the Messiah has come. The Jews do not believe that yet. They're still waiting for the Messiah. All right, so that's a little bit more background. All right, come on back again. I go on a lot of tandems because there's a lot that a lot of people don't know. If you haven't really known this before, I want to tie it all together. So anyway, there's this battle, and this archway is the only thing left of these ruins. And like I said, in the past, I got upset with the Taliban. Taliban was going throughout the Middle East, destroying ancient architecture. The Taliban took dynamite to these 5,000-year-old Buddhist statues. They're like giant statues of I don't remember what they were exactly of, where they were of Buddha or some other figure, but they took dynamite to it and destroyed those forever. And there's no way you can get them back. They're 5,000 years old, and they were in pristine condition until the dynamite went to them. I was furious about that. Well, in Palmyra, we had a different form of radical Muslims. These are the ISIS guys, right? That were created from the Democrats going through and causing regime change throughout the Middle East, which caused the Arab Spring, because now the leaders were gone. All the Arab nations were rising up and marching against their governments to try to instill democracy, and because the dictators were gone. They got rid of Saddam Hussein. It started with George Bush getting Saddam Hussein out. They got rid of Mubarak in Egypt. Gaddafi was killed. Hillary Clinton celebrated that. She was like, we saw, he died, or whatever, something like that, right? And she laughs about it. So anyway, it created all this instability. The Obama administration created the Syrian refugee problem because of the war that was going on with ISIS coming in and trying to overthrow Assad as one of those other regime changes, which has not been successful. But anyway, they had that battle in Palmyra. The ISIS soldiers came through. They destroyed the gate to Baal, and that was a World Heritage Site, UNESCO. So what happens? The globalist satanic communists decided to reconstruct that gate. There's a process, I can't remember what it's called. It's like anastellosis or something, where they use the ancient methods of building old structures to rebuild those structures, right? So they did that. All right, the gate of Palmyra, the Arch of Palmyra, is about 5 stories tall, and it's like 11 can't remember exactly, but it's very, very, very heavy and very tall. They reconstructed it, and they were going to bring it to New York, and they told everybody that it was a gate for Baal, and everybody in New York got upset, right? So they ended up unveiling it in London, right? The reproduction of this archway. It's a financial center, which symbolizes power and freedom and the ability to do what you want now. The same themes of demonic worship. And then they brought it back to New York, and they unveiled it again. And this was in May Day. They did it on the feast of Beltane, which is that satanic holiday. And again, Beltane is a sacrifice of blood and fire, right? Usually it's children's sacrifice. So they did this in New York, which is the United Nations headquarters. It's a financial center. It's a symbol of power and ability to do whatever you want. Do what thou wilt. So they unveil these satanic things on these feast days. Well, New York, again, is where they did this abortion legislature that they unveiled and passed on the anniversary of Roe versus Wade, which just happens to be in January 22nd. But the mere fact that they did it on a feast day tells you that they're following that same method. I'll tell you again, there's another one. The globalists like to do these kinds of things at like when CERN was erected. They have the goddess Shiva standing outside of it. She is the goddess of destruction. She is death, again representing the devil. There's a tunnel in Switzerland that went underneath a mountain. It's what's it called? The Goddard Tunnel. They had just finished boring through a mountain so that they could pass, and it connects Europe from one side of the mountain to the other side of the mountain. They had this real satanic ceremony. They dedicated it to Baphomet. Baphomet is another form of Baal, but Baphomet is the half goat, half man. The head of the goat, and then the lower portion is the body of a man. And they, again, is a child sacrifice, pedophilia god. And they did this again in May, by May Day, right? And there's a whole ceremony on YouTube that you can find. All this information is on the internet. You can look it up. All right. So the Democrats are revealing themselves as Satanists. And if you're a Democrat, you really need to consider what is it you are following. You may consider yourself an atheist. You may consider yourself to not follow any gods or any kind of cult or faith, but you're being forced into it. They're forcing you into their ceremonies, and you don't even realize it. And what they're also doing is they're getting you on the slippery slope. Now, a slippery slope is not that steep, but just to get you on it is enough because it's slippery. So as soon as you step on it, you don't notice you're sliding a little bit. But then when you try to turn around and run back to the top, you go sliding down still. They're getting you on the slippery slope because everything that they introduce to you is small. Remember when they said, we're not, abortion is just, these are a clump of cells. All right, that's the small introduction. It's not a baby yet in their mind. To a Christian, it is a baby. To them, they were justifying it by science. It's not alive. If you take that clump of cells out of the mom, it dies. Well, then what do? They extend the time that the clump of cells is in the mom from the first trimester to the second trimester. And it's still a clump of cells. But now they've extended it again. And now it's from the first trimester to the third. And what they've done now, and the third trimester is a baby's already formed. The baby has lungs, can breathe, can eat on its own. Well, you still have to feed it, but it can eat. And you take it out of the mother's body, it's a human being. It's always been a human being, but they conned you into thinking it was just a clump of cells. But now they're blatant about it. The baby can come out and be alive and be breathing, and they'll try to kill it now. And what I'm saying to you is gradually they're getting you used to being a murderer. And at what point, for right now, it's the mother's choosing the abortion. But what is it? At some point, the government may be the one to choose in the future who is supposed to have an abortion or not. And they may force you to have an abortion. They may force you to abort your child. And at what point does it stop? Because now the child that is born is alive. I'm alive. But I'm 41. What's the difference between a child that's, 36 weeks old and an adult who's 41, or an adult who's 90, or an adult who's 20? There is no difference anymore. So they've now legitimized murder. And these are the same people who come for our guns. They tell us, oh, we're not going to take all your guns. We just want the military-style ones. That slippery slope again. Get on the slope with me, because we don't want children to die. Well, with this abortion stuff, they're proving they do want children to die. So this should eliminate all gun control stuff after it. So they want to take your guns. Oh, we just want to take the military-style ones. You don't need a 30-round magazine. You don't need a firearm that spits, 10 rounds a second or 30 rounds a second, as they say. Stupid Kevin De Leon in California talking about ghost guns, whatever a ghost gun is. They label them these things to scare people, and then they take them. Take your guns because they don't want children to get hurt. Well, the guns are actually what protect children. They protect us. Only bad people will try to murder, and the Democrats are bad people. So in the end, what we should be doing is taking guns away from them, from the communists and the bad Democrat people. So the slippery slope is, let's get you on this thing, and it's harmless what we're doing right now. So they'll get you started, and then once you're started, you're screwed. I remember Nancy Pelosi on the Obamacare thing. Let's get Obamacare started. Let's pass the bill before reading what the law is about, so that we can know what's in the law. You pass it first, and then we'll read it. Well, it's in law already. You pass it. Trying to repeal a law once it's passed is very difficult to do. So they try to get you in it. Once you're in it, you're screwed. All right, so my point to you guys is really consider now what side you're on. You may not believe in God, but God is there, whether you believe in him or not. And in the Bible, which is already over 2,000 years old, because before it was printed, it was an oral tradition. People would talk the Bible. They wouldn't read it, because a lot of people couldn't read in the past. Plus, Bibles were too expensive for everyone to buy in the way past, until you got to the Gutenberg Bible, where they made it off of a printing press, and that lowered the cost of making a Bible, and it made it easier. They could just reproduce it, and then people could then buy it as long as they had an education. But anyway, the Bible tells us that there are signs that will tell us we're in the end times, when the devil will come from the four corners of the earth Baal is one of those examples where if you look at the numbers connected to the Baal temple, the number 4, it always comes up. Baal is even 4 letters, Baal, right? The dates, if you add up all the dates to like to and reduce them to one number, it's 4. The number 4 in the Bible represents a totality of the world, a completion, a coming to an end, death, learning, perfect numbers for the devil, right? You read of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, as you always hear of in stories and things like that. So the number 4 is very significant, and we're seeing the signs that Jesus said in the end times you're going to hear of wars, rumors of wars. You'll see earthquakes. There are earthquakes all around the world. Volcanoes are erupting. Strange weather patterns. See, they lie to you about this climate change stuff. Climate change is natural. It's always happened. And that's controlled by God, not by man. And taxing you is not going to affect the weather changing. It's just a way of them to steal money from you. But God is out there, and the devil is out there. And you may choose neither one, but they affect you whether you choose them or not. And at some point, I'd say you have to choose a side. You got to figure out which side you want to be on. Do you want to be on the side of God, who restricts your life, gives you a guideline on how to live, and tells you how not to do things? Gives you commandments that say, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not lie. You know, honor the Sabbath. Love me above all things, right? Love God above all things. Don't covet your neighbor's wife, or their house, or their ass, or things like that, right? Ass being donkey. Do you want to follow that kind of entity? Because I'll tell you, discipline is important. In markets, in politics, in everything you do in life, discipline is key to a happy life. It's often the people who are undisciplined that have the worst kind of life. And the devil tends to get you in those kinds of lifestyles where you don't want to face your responsibilities, where you don't want to have discipline and self-control. And it may be fun for a time, but you start to find out that the devil's actually taken from you in a lot of ways. Takes from you spiritually, takes from you monetarily, destroys your friendships, your relationships. Which side do you want to be on? Because the signs are there. We're in the end times. I firmly believe it. I have children, and I see governments passing laws where I could kill those children if I chose to. What kind of a society kills its own kids? What kind of a people kills their own kids? It's a society that doesn't have much time left. It's to the point where the society actually started before killing the kids. They started confusing the kids about who they are, mixing up their sexes so the kids don't know, what am I? They have no roots. They have no connection to God. They have no connection to their own sexuality. They have no connection to anything. Nothing is solid. There are no borders. Sin fronteras, pueblos sin fronteras, right? You think that's just about the borders of a country? No, it's about your own identity too. You're confused about your identity because there's no borders. Even though you may have a penis, you don't even know if you're a guy or not. You may have a vagina, you have no idea you're a woman or not. And then those people who choose that kind of lifestyle end up committing suicide a lot. They have the highest level of suicide. Why? These devils want you to commit suicide. They want your soul. They want your spirit. I constantly am telling people, don't commit suicide. Don't do it. There's so many things out there. You know, I may not agree with your lifestyle. Maybe you are trans. I don't agree with that. But I don't want you to kill yourself. I never want anyone to kill themselves. That's not the answer. Killing yourself is not the answer. Everyone has hard times. And it's even harder for you because you're confused about who you are. You think you're solid in being trans, but you're not sure of yourself. And the moment you encounter a difficulty in your life, there's no stability. See, in the Bible, it even talks about that. There's a man who builds his house on a rock and another man that doesn't build his house on rock. He builds it on sand, right? Which one are you? You can be a woman and, we can switch the gender of it. There's a woman who builds her house on a rock or a woman who builds her house on sand. Which one are you? The one that builds the house on a rock has a firm foundation so that no matter what's going on, weather change, financial problems, things like that, your house remains on firm footing, firm ground, and stands for a long time. But if you build it on sand, where there was no foundation, you didn't take the time and the discipline to form your life and your habits, and the ways of the world and life came and buffeted your house and wiped the sand away, the seas tossed, washed all that underneath the house away, and your house crumbled. We're in those times. So you need to choose your side. You need to start figuring out that these communist devils are trying to steal your soul. They're trying to steal everything from you. And you need to decide, where do you stand? And I think I'll leave it at that. I've said a lot. But I do believe we're in the end times. So no matter how you invest, in the end, scriptures say, more precious than silver and gold is Jesus. Jesus is more precious than silver and gold. Why? Because your life here is limited, and all things physical will pass away. I've lost a lot of family members just here in the end of 2018 and beginning of 2019. I lost my dad in December, and my cousin came to my dad's funeral. I saw her, I was talking with her, and a week or so after that, she also died. And I'm shocked about it. Our funeral is going to be on this Sunday, and I still can't believe it. I still think she's around, but we're here for a brief time on this planet. The physicality goes away, but your spirit is eternal. And that's why Jesus is more precious than silver and gold, because if you don't have Jesus, your eternal spirit goes on after you die. Where does it go? There is a hell, and there is a heaven. Where do you go after? Where do you choose to go? You can choose. You can decide. You can decide to live a good life. You can decide to restrict yourself now from all those bad things. Or you can just go on, do whatever you want. Kill people. Steal from them. It doesn't bug me. As long as it doesn't bug me, it's not my problem, right? Wrong. It's recording in your spirit of who you are. In your heart, in your mind, you will remember all those things. And when it's your time to go from here, you're determining your ticket on the other side, and that's forever. So it's something to think about. So prepare here. I've been saying that for a lot of people and for a long time. And a lot of people in the beginning laughed at me and they thought I was nutty. But a lot of those people now have changed and they're on my side. And they're actually doing things for themselves and they're better for themselves. I want that for all of you guys too. Don't rely on governments. The devil works in government. Read scriptures and you'll see throughout history. The devil works in government because that's where power is. The devil wants power. Power to do whatever he wants, including take your life and the lives of your kids. So let's protect our children at least. Even if you don't care about yourself, let's protect the kids. God love you. If you like what you've heard here, if you've stayed this long for this message, hit that like button. If you're first time here, subscribe and hit the bell notifications symbol so that every time I create a video, you'll know something new came out and you can watch it. And I pray for you guys. I wish you the best. Again, if you're going to commit suicide, really, really rethink that. We need you here. We need angelic, holy soldiers to fight these demons, because the demons have taken over. They're everywhere. They're in government. They're in the church. They're at home a lot of the times. They're at your work. They're everywhere. We need to fight those bad things so that we can preserve a good life. So anyway, hit the like, subscribe, but most importantly, share it so that if you know somebody needs to hear these messages, they'll get that message out. All right, this is a long video. I'm going to end it here. Love you guys. God bless.